Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the Mentor Nation podcast. It is your host, John Abbas here. And man, I'm very excited to be with you here today. And if you're watching this live, I want to be the first to wish you happy holidays. As I'm making this video, it is December 15th. So Christmas is just 10 days away. And even more exciting than that, we're almost finished with the year 2020 and we're about to ring in a brand new year. If you are watching this episode on YouTube, do me a favor, make sure you just take 2 seconds, hit that subscribe button. I've got a lot of really great episodes coming in 2021. And if you subscribe and turn on your notifications, you'll get a notification every single time I release a new episode, which is once per week as of right now. Now, if you are an entrepreneur and you are watching this, I hope by now you know how important setting goals are for yourself. One of the things that I do personally as an entrepreneur is I take usually a full day in November, sometimes in December, and sometimes in October. But I just turn my phone off. I stay away from all outside distractions. And I just make plans and blueprints for myself for the next 12 months. I set goals, but even more importantly than setting goals, it's really important to think about those goals that you set and understand what it is that you really want. And do they serve who you want to be? Are they aligned with your reason why? I find a lot of times that thinking really helps me erase some goals and set ones that I really should have set in the first place. So I take a day. And obviously, as entrepreneurs, one of the biggest goals that we all set every single year deals with financial goals. And so obviously, as you add more value to the marketplace, as you're able to serve more people, your income will rise along with it. And that brings me to my awesome guest today, who is going to show you exactly how to do that, how you can add more value, how you can serve more people. My guest today, his name is Henry Kaminski, and the world knows him as the brand doctor. He's an entrepreneur, he's an author, he's a self-made millionaire, and he dedicates his entire life and his business to helping others become powerful influencers in the marketplace. He goes in, he's a guru, and you'll see that in this interview. He's got an incredible story, but in this interview, Henry shares not only his story from failure to becoming highly successful, but what I really enjoy is we shift into two important topics that I believe all of you need to pay attention to, especially if you're entrepreneurs. Number one, he covers in depth how to position yourself as an influencer or a subject matter expert. And he goes into a lot of detail on that. And then the second thing is 4 questions that you must ask yourself when building a brand. And we live in a world today where everything is about branding, and you can't learn enough about it. And there's just a lot of great content, a lot of wisdom in this interview, and I'm so excited for you to tune in. So with that being said, sit back, relax, and please help me welcome Henry Kaminski to the show. All right, Henry, thank you so much, man, for being a guest on the podcast. And I just want to be the first to welcome you to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. I am so pumped to be here. Thanks, John.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I've covered a lot of your accolades in the intro, but I just have to tell you, man, wow, you have a hell of a story. I teared up watching your video on YouTube. Not gonna lie. It was really powerful. And I just think that your outlook on life and your journey of hard work is just really, really inspirational, man. So it's an honor to have you on.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I wish we could say it was Range Rovers and roses, from the beginning, but there was a couple of big, punts in the face I had to go through to get to where I'm at. And you know what? Those scars, they remind me of what it took to get here, and I'm grateful for it. So, you could look at it half full or half empty, and I'm always looking half full.
I love that. That's awesome. So just for the audience to know, you are known as the brand doctor, and I'm sure everybody can figure out exactly what that means. And we're going to go into that a little bit more. One of the things, or actually two of the things that I really was hoping that we could focus this interview on today and really impact the audience is, number one, just how to position yourself as an influencer or an expert. I mean, it's so hard because there's so much noise. there's like everything's been done before. And so I'm really curious to dive into that. And then the second thing is, I saw on your bio that the 4 questions that you must ask yourself when building a brand. I thought that was an excellent question to ask you. But first, Henry, if you don't mind, man, I just really want to have you share a little bit about your story because there's huge lessons here. You were self-taught, self-made, and that is freaking powerful. And the lessons there on work ethic and focus, picking yourself up after failure are just incredible. And so I just wanted to see, could you share a little bit about your journey to building a multi-million-dollar business?
Sure. So It's a story that goes back to way before I was actually born. When my parents got married, they wanted to have a kid right away, and they couldn't. Medicine wasn't the way it is today. My mom had issues, my father had issues, and they struggled. And it took them literally 16 years to have me. And my mom, God rest her soul, she would always tell her girlfriends, like, he's my miracle baby. He's my miracle baby. It took me 16 years to have him. And I always thought, like, as a 6-year-old kid, like, women were pregnant for 16 years. I had no idea what that all meant until I got older. And so when I really heard that story, I was like, man, you two knuckleheads never gave up.
Right.
You guys were persistent. And then, fast forward, I'm born 2 years into my life. My mom comes into the room where I was sleeping, and I'm blue and unresponsive. They can't figure out what's wrong with me. They rush me to the hospital. They find out that I lost all the salt nutrients in my body. And I base it. My mom thought I was sleeping, but I was actually unconscious. And so they get me back to life. And, to this day, my father still can't talk about that story. And so I hear about that part, and I say to myself as I get older, man, you're here on borrowed time, dude. You better make the best of it. There's people that are dying to live, another day, and here you got a second chance. And so that's been the story in my head for 40 years. And it has really helped me get through some of the tough times in my life and help me grow this business. So we can go as deep as you want, John.
Yeah. Well, I want to
talk about,
Yeah, I was just going to say, I just want to fast forward a little bit because I think one of the most fascinating parts to me about your story is, you're working a job, you're grateful for every part of it. You're doing your normal 9-to-5 thing, and you get into what I think is like event planning, like for a company. And there's this big client, and you need to like wow everybody. And I think it's so fascinating that you just had to teach yourself something that ended up becoming so valuable. So can you start there, and then we'll get into how that grew into what it is today?
So I got out of college right when 9/11 hit, like literally a couple months later, and nobody was hiring, very similar to these times, with COVID. And so I had to use my resources. And so I had an uncle who was pretty affluent in northern New Jersey, and I asked him, do you know anybody who's hiring? So he helped me get into this hospital, and he helped me get the foot in the door.
Sure.
But there was no like big promotions. I had to scrap my way up to this position that you were talking about. So I was cleaning coffee pots, checking insurances. People didn't like me because who I was related to. They thought that it was a shoe-in job, so they resented me for it. All that politics stuff. And so I had to muscle through all of that. Okay, so I'm working my way up in the corporate ladder at the hospital. After a while, I get my master's degree. And as soon as I got that degree, I was going after every management and directorial position that opened. And I was getting the door slammed in my face one after the other. I was 26 years old. I have a master's degree. I don't have any experience. They're looking for experience. I'm knocking myself in the head going, what the hell did I just spend the last 2 years on? But something told me to just stay patient. What you learned in that degree is going to pay off eventually. Just hang tight. That's what was going on in the back of my head. So fast forward, I finally get a job in the children's hospital. It was event planning. It was an assistant director to the Sudden Infant Death Syndrome Center. So if you don't know what SIDS is, it's when a baby dies under the age of 1 and they don't know how it died. There's no cause. So it was a rewarding job, but it was very, very sad too. But what my responsibility was to create fundraising events to raise money for the program, and then take that money and create events in the state of New Jersey to support the families in the state of New Jersey that lost a baby to SIDS. So every quarter I had to come up with a new fundraising event, right? So I was in the nightlife industry back then. I was a young kid. So my buddies were all like club promoters and we thought we were so cool. And I said, why don't we do an event at one of your clubs to my buddy? Yep. And he said, oh, we could figure something out. We could figure something like that out. Okay. So I reach out to Z100, biggest radio station on the planet. And I asked them to sponsor the event. A couple days later, I get a response back from Danielle Monero. She's still on the show with Elvis in the morning. And she says, I'm in. Tell me what you want to do. Let's do it. So she brings me to she brings me up to the studio and she does this whole cool promo with me. And it was phenomenal. We kick off the event and I need marketing materials to market this damn thing. So right. I go to my buddy who's a graphic designer. Can you create the flyers for me? And he was like, yeah. So he's like, come over. We'll do it on a Sunday morning. So I go over and I'm watching him design. John, I didn't even know what graphic design was. I was like, oh, this is graphic design. I go, I need to learn this. This is insane. So we do the event. It was a success. It was great. Now I convinced my boss, why don't you buy me this Photoshop program and I'll do all the in-house design going forward. Why pay it? Right? Why pay for it? That was it. I don't know if that was the best move she ever made or the worst move she ever made. My boss.
I'm out of here. I'm going off on my own now.
She gets me the program and I just start doing everything in-house. Now, people forget I stayed in this position for 3 years before I went out on my own. Okay. So I built up 36 months worth of business outside of the hospital. This was a side hustle for me. I was designing all day and then I would come home and just eat a pizza. Right. And then I would design all night long and then just go to work and just repeat that. And I did that for 36 months.
That's a really important point that you're making right here is you built a side hustle while still having your security and having everything you need to pay the bills. Now, did you have a passion for this? Did you enjoy it? Did you have a knack for it? Or is this one of those things where you obviously I think that you must have loved it for you to be able to do it all day and then continue to do it all night. But I'm wondering, were you in love with the potential and the amount of money that you could make doing it? Or do you actually just enjoy the art of graphic design?
Yeah. So it's more the latter. Right. I'll be honest, I'm not one of those, I tease these folks, but that I'm not the introvert with the hoodie, with the headphones that sits at Starbucks all day with their laptop and designs and doesn't talk to anybody. Like I am the farthest person from that. And I'm not gonna nickel and dime you. I'm not gonna nickel and dime you. I'm not gonna fight you on that pixel because I think it's where it's supposed to be versus that's not me. Right. That's like an artist at its core. Right. Like,
yep.
They're so passionate about their art. Right. I can't even draw a stick figure, John. Like that's how much I hear about design. Yeah. However, I always wanted to be in control of my future. I always had a business sense to me. My father worked 4 jobs. So I saw him hustling and he had me cutting lawns at 13 years old. I was working at the mall when I was 14 years old. Like I always had, and every job I had in high school, I was always looking at how can I make this business better?
That's right.
And I always had that sort of mindset. Right. So when this fell on my lap, because this is a blessing, John, this was given to me from the universe or God, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And I said to myself, wow, I need to do something with this. I cannot be wasted talent. You hear me say this in my talks and in my show. The saddest thing in life is wasted talent. And I was not going to be that. All right. So I took design and I saw it as a gift. And I said, how can I evolve this? How can I create this? How can I make something of this and make something of myself with this?
That's right.
And, you know, it was funny. The hospital started cracking down. They started to see what I was doing. 2008 hit, big economic turmoil. At the same time, hospital was going through some of their own stuff that they needed to get sorted out. They were in a newspaper and all of that. And so they started to downsize. So this was no surprise. They started having me go down half of the day and like file papers for a director just to get me out of my like groove.
Yep.
And then eventually they said, listen, come the end of the year, you could stay here, but you're going to be that person's secretary because your job is done, or you could leave. And it was the scariest thing in my life. You know, I said to myself, what the hell do I do now? You know, yeah, I've been hustling my ass off for the past 36 months, but I don't know. Is this going to sustain a lifestyle? Like, can I make a living off of this? And that was my biggest fear. So I went back to my uncle who got me the job. And I said, I don't know what to do. Now he owns a big construction company. Yep. The whole family works for him. I said, maybe I'll just come work for you. And he said, what would you do here? Like your cousins, they all, you know, they're operating engineers. Your cousin went to school for this stuff, you know, like, what would you do? And I said, I don't know. I'll be like a project manager or something. And he's like, Henry, it doesn't work that way. As nice as he could be, he said to me, he said, Henry, let me think about it. Let me talk to a couple of people and let me see if we can get you a spot here. So give me some time. I'll get back to you. 1 week goes by. 2 weeks goes by, 3 weeks goes by. Now I'm really starting to get nervous, right? Because I'm getting towards the end of the year. And I finally said, you know what? I get it. I know the answer. And it's the best answer you could have ever given me. And it was none. We never spoke about it again. He never talked about it again. And I said to myself, there's your answer. Now go. First, I went to my boss, like it was yesterday, saying, it's go time, pal. First year, I made $248,000. Some people, it takes 3-4 years to be profitable, right? First year. And then that gave me the confidence to just go. And I never looked back from there, man.
That's awesome. So obviously since that time, you've went on to do some amazing things. You've built a multi-million-dollar business. You've scaled. Obviously you've had your ups and downs, just like all of us as entrepreneurs do, whether it's business or family. I mean, we all go through it. But that's really awesome. And so I want to pivot this into how we can really help the audience right here, because right now at this point in time, your business specifically helps people brand themselves, like, this is what you do all day long. It's just like if I were to go to you and you were literally designing for 3 years, every day, all day and all night. I mean, you could teach it in your sleep because this is what you do. And so I just cannot wait for these lessons. And so I want to go back to the first question for everybody listening that they have something that they want to say, something bigger that they want to do. They just don't know what. Like, they obviously, in order to even survive today, you have to be okay at something. And I think a lot of people don't understand how powerful that is. And then I know myself, one of the things that I suffer with for a very long time is just how good do I have to be in order to position myself without feeling like a fraud. And so I'm just interested in your philosophy on that, and then how the first few steps to go about positioning yourself.
That's a great question, man. And I've been there over and over again. It's not just one time. I've been in those shoes before. You know, think about it. I did not take one course in design. So can you imagine the amount of imposter syndrome?
That's right.
That I carried for years until I literally got coaches and mentors and, you know, and sales coaches. And they started to really dissect the value that I was delivering and then like mirroring it back to me. And then I realized, wow, Henry, you've been underselling yourself for so long. How long, like, why are you doing this? Right. And that was it. I woke up one day and I was like, I'm done. I'm charging a premium. I've earned my stripes and I'm going. And I had to leave some people behind, but the people that I serve now, it's unreal. So let's take it back. You know, how much do you really need to know? You just got to be a chapter ahead of everybody else that you're serving. That's it.
Love that.
I mean, it sounds like, I mean, I don't know. It sounds a little dirty if you ask me, but it's not, because those are the people that need your help the most, they're behind you. You know, I look at life and I look at business as a freeway, right? And the smart travelers, the smart business owners understand this, and they'll hire mentors and coaches that are a few exits ahead or a few miles ahead. And they'll hire those folks just to tell them what to look out for: the speed bumps, the traffic, the accidents. But we're all on this freeway. We're all on this highway together. Some of us are just a few exits ahead of the next person. So there's a ton of people behind you that need your help. That's who you need to serve. So the first step, John, is to understand that. And 2, get really serious on who it is that you want to serve.
Love that. I love that. It's so good to hear, because it's like that with everything. The first step to success in anything is a mindset. It's getting your head right, your belief system right. If you can get that, it's just a matter of, how do I do it now? So step 2, obviously, is who do you want to serve? Now, how do you do that? Because I know that and I'm just going to use a real life example. I want to use my podcast, for example, and I figured it out, but I would love to hear your perspective. Mm-hmm. So when I started the podcast, I went through Johnny Lee Dumas's mastermind, Entrepreneurs on Fire, huge podcast. And I started to create my customer avatar. And so, obviously the name of this podcast is Mentor Nation. It's a broad podcast. Like, who do I serve? Entrepreneurs. Well, that's not good enough, right? It's just, you have to keep refining that. How did, just talk about, I guess, your business right now. Like, how did you narrow yours down? Like, what is your avatar at this moment?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So I looked at who kept coming to me for help. And it was the expert, it was the coach, it was the consultant, it was the solopreneur, if you will, that was trying to get out of working inside of their business instead of working on it. They saw my success. They see how I went from worker B to mayor B, right? right.
I like that.
They saw, Queen B or right. They saw that happen and they were like, well, he must have the blueprint, or he at least has the experience. I'm going to hire him. And so I just happened to come along with a tremendous amount of branding experience and design skill set, which makes me very, very different. Because you can hire John Lee Dumas, but he's not going to design you your brand.
That's exactly right.
I could do that, right? And that's what makes me fun and very dynamic. So that's who I serve at this point. Now, not to mention, there's some bigger businesses that came my way recently and asked me if I could help them rebrand or reposition themselves. And I'm happy to do that if it's a good fit,
Sure.
But the majority of my clients, I'll give you a quick example. Jason Lynette, he's in the hypnosis space, and he built a multi 6-figure business with that, serving hypnotists, helping them build their businesses. And then he got to the point where the business was running on its own. And he said, Henry, I want to help solopreneurs. Like, I want to help other business owners, not just hypnotists. And so he came to me and said, let's I want to rebrand and restructure and reposition, everything, because that business is running on its own now. And I said, let's do it. And so over the past 3 months, we've been working together closely. We're about to launch next week. This is why it's fresh in my head. And, we took him, and here's a guy that has 15 years plus experience, probably 2 decades, I think, experience. And then when you saw him online, you would think he was just starting, because his whole brand looked like Fiverr. and that bothers me so much, John, because there's guys like Jason that have all of this knowledge, wisdom, have a great product or service, but their online presence does not represent the true value that they deliver.
So many people.
Yeah. That is my avatar right there. It's Steve McCoach. This is my avatar, Steve McCoach, who's the undervalued coach.
Oh man, I love that. That's so good. So is there any other steps after to cover quickly? So obviously mindset, you have to understand that you don't have to be the best in the world. You just have to be a step ahead, which every successful person that I know that really helps people to breakthroughs, they say the exact same thing. And they said that's one of the biggest things you have to understand for yourself is people need somebody that can meet them where they're at because they were just there. Not somebody that has been so far removed from where that person is trying to go because they've been doing it for 50 years. So it's huge. And then the second thing is understand who you're serving. So then what would be step 3?
Step 3 is really understanding the attributes of your brand. So step 3 would be, how do you make people's lives better? What do you need to sound like? What do you need to look like? What do you need to feel like? What's the X factor? What makes you radically different from everybody else that does what you do? Right? And how would your community or how would your ideal client describe you? So really understanding and defining the attributes of your brand, right? And then really narrowing that down. So that's what we do in the Brand Accelerator program. We take you through this step of the process, but we make you work a little bit. It's like Tim Grover. I'm very similar. You know who Tim Grover is?
Relentless.
Yes.
Yes,
so
sir.
I am like the Tim Grover in branding. I'm not going to let you just skate through a program and I'm going to fill out a sheet with you about who your avatar is and what you want to, it's not about that. What the hardest part of branding, John, is subtracting. Because people like to add so much. You could see it. I see the amateurs out there. They just keep adding to their branding. So they'll add another color. They'll add another logo. They'll add another font. They'll keep adding offers and services. And next thing you know, they're serving no one because nobody knows what the hell they actually do.
That's right. I have 2 questions on that. First, because I know a lot of people, a lot of solopreneurs or people that are just getting their business started, a lot of them think that branding is literally creating a logo. They think, oh, I have a brand now, I just created a logo. So could you just share a little bit about like what components go into a brand? I mean, it's more than a logo. So it's like your logo, like what components go into building a brand?
Well, let's talk about what branding is. Let's talk about personal branding too, because that's where I that's kind of my wheelhouse now for the past 8 years.
Perfect.
So the definition of branding that I really gravitated to came from Marty Neuheimer, big in the branding space. But he defines branding as the gut feeling people get when they interact with you, your business, product, services. That's it. That's what branding is at its core. It's logos and websites and funnels and all of that. Those are assets. Those are pieces, but they're tools. Branding at its core is what I just mentioned. Now, what is personal branding? Personal branding is the intersection between how you perceive yourself and how others perceive you.
It's gold, man. This is so good.
So what I normally see when people are struggling with their personal branding is that gap being extremely wide. They think they're one thing. The audience thinks they're another. And that's where the disconnect is. When I see people crushing it, that gap is very narrow because they're in alignment with themselves and their audience. So, this happened to me. This is why I became so passionate about personal branding.
Right.
5-6 years ago, when you watched my ads, it was me just fronting with flash, me getting out of planes and helicopters and all of this shit. It was all BS, right? It just made me feel good. It was all ego. And I wasn't leading with value. I was leading to just get people's attention. And I did. And I kept getting the wrong people's attention. Because as much as I hate pretentious people, that's all I was coming across pretentious. So that's all that I was attracting. And then I got trolled online. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Why? Because this guy let me have it. And instead of me like getting all upset and trashing him and blocking him and doing all of this stuff, I just kept asking him more questions. Because I was fascinated by how off I was. This is what happens when people build their own websites and funnels and brands. They get so romantic with them. It's like calling your child ugly. You would never. And you would take such offense if somebody did.
That's right.
Right. But what if they are? You know what I mean? I would never say it. I'm not that guy. Believe me, I have a 3-year-old son. If anybody said that to me, you better watch because you're going to snap. Right. But the point that I'm making is the people that really make a difference and really go on to succeed are the ones that drop their ego and say, I need help. I've gotten to the point where I can't go alone anymore. And I really want to make this something. And then they reach out a hand. And then those are the people that I grab their hands and say, you're safe with me. Let's go.
That's awesome. You said, obviously hypnosis. I mean, that's incredible. A multiple 6-figure a year business from something that's so niche that it literally would apply to less than 1% of the planet. Can you use a couple of examples? Because I know I'd say everybody at first makes the same mistake. I make it. I still make it. Just going too broad. You want to serve everybody, and therefore you serve nobody effectively. And so can you share just a couple of other really niche as we wrap up here shortly, that you've seen people crush it in an industry like where it's just, there's so few people, but it's so niche. Like, do you have any that come to mind?
Yes. So there was a client that I had in Canada, not too long ago, and she worked with hockey kids that played hockey. And she basically, it was mindset and the physical aspect. So it's pretty unique, but that's all she helped was because hockey's huge in Canada, but she helped a specific demographic of young man and women. There were some girls in there too, but mostly men. And the problem was she had 20 plus years experience in this.
Yep.
She worked with NHL teams. She was getting paid $200 an hour for her coaching.
Wow.
And I finally, and then she came to me and she's like, I need your help. Like this, I'm not confident with how I look online. And therefore I will not raise my price because I don't think people will take me serious. And like, I could get choked up thinking about that because that was me.
Yep.
12 years ago, 13 years ago. And I know what that feels like. It feels like you're trapped. It feels like you can't move forward. It feels like you're a failure. It feels like nobody's going to hire you ever again. I know what it feels like. And so we sat down, I brought her through the program and I said to her, now let's look at this. Now we're going to start charging $2,000 a session and we're going to 10X your business.
Wow.
The other problem was she was spread way too thin. Her calendar didn't have 10 minutes of free time. And she had a husband, she had a kid, she had a son who was, I think, 10 or 11, right? Played hockey, played sport, like no time whatsoever for anything but work. Now I have a 3-year-old son, and I remember what those days felt like. If he was here during that time of my life, I don't know what I would have done, John.
Right.
Quite frankly, I don't know what I would have done. It would have been horrible. And I know the dads out there that are maybe just got laid off and they're trying to get this side hustle going and they don't know where to turn. They're not getting momentum. There's no traction. They have they keep throwing crap against the wall, seeing if it sticks. And They got ankle biters, waiting to be played with, at the end of it all. And, I'm trying to help those people get ahead. I'm trying to help those people build a business that they can design and customize to really fit their lifestyle and to go out and help a bunch of people.
Absolutely. And there's something else I think people need to hear right now too, is because, when people are struggling is when they're least inclined to want to invest in themselves and spend money. And it's such a mindset. It's such a terrible way to think, but we all think that way, right? Like, it's like the last thing I want to do when I'm broke is spend money. And you have a really awesome story when you were losing it all and you were playing with investing $10,000 into a mastermind. And I just want to have you share that story and just what happened because of that.
Yeah. So I'm 5 years into my business. Felt like 50, 20-hour days.
Yeah.
Right. So I get to the point where Fiverr comes out, disrupts the design world. Hurricane Sandy comes through New Jersey, wipes out 2 of my biggest clients that were both bringing in combined about $250,000. They get wiped out. They come back and they say to me, Henry, we rebuilt and we're going to take everything in house. We don't. So how do I recoup that kind of revenue coming in? I don't. So I start to fall into this black hole of I'm just going to go out guns blazing and burn this thing to the ground. And something stopped me, but I went out and I never stopped spending money. I was never very financially intelligent back then. So I never stopped spending money and I kept my lifestyle up, but my business was going down.
Right.
And I finally came to a breaking point where I had to tell my wife, and my wife has always been supportive. And thank God she was there, right when I started Unique Designz. So she remembers me with nothing really. And I said, I need to find help, and I went on a quest. I started to look for coaching. I started to look for where could I learn to improve my skill set? What is this digital marketing world about? I need to increase the value of my service. Otherwise, I'm going to become a commodity. So I reached out to Russell Brunson. I started listening to his podcast over there at ClickFunnels, and he kept talking about this inner circle program. And I'm like, what is this? Everybody sounds like they're crushing it inside of it. I want to, I need to get around these people. So I go through his funnel. I get on the call. It's a sales call. And the guy says it's 25,000. I'm like, there's no way. Right. There's no way. So they said, well, we have this other program. It's 10,000. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, it's not if I do that. Oh no, it's not if this works. It's when this works. But here's my struggle. I don't have 10K liquid laying around. I said, if you let me put 5K on a credit card and 5K over the next 5 months, I'll do it. So he says, let me check with Russell. It was one of those sales. He probably just had the phone next to him and waited for 3 minutes and then came back. Like one of those, right?
Of course.
So he comes back and he's like, we'll do it. And so I jumped in that mastermind and I got on a call with Russell and I had 60 minutes with him. So I had slides, I had all this stuff prepared. And by halfway through, I start hysterical crying. He starts hysterical crying because our stories aligned so much. And at the end of the call, he says, Henry, I got this new book coming out. It's called .com Secrets. I would love for you to help me with some design work around it. Now, I didn't design the cover or anything, but
Sure.
I said, sure. He said, what would you charge? I said, I don't know. I said, let me get back to you. So I said, how's $6,000? Because I knew I had to pay him 10, right? So he said, I'll do it. He says, I'll do it. And so he wired me $6,000, and I helped him a couple of months with some really cool infographics and some design work around the book. And then I'm in the group, but I'm doing my thing. I'm doing everything that he's telling me to do. And I start to see, business get better, because what I did was I took my skill set in design and brought it into a community that was starving, the ClickFunnels community. And if I can help them design killer funnels, I'm leveling up the value that I deliver. Therefore, people will pay me more. And that's what happened. So fast forward, I start working with Russell. He comes back to me and says, dude, we're going to take this business to $100 million. But our design and our branding is so scatterbrained. I have 6 designers right now, and they all bring me back different looks and feels. And it's so frustrating. He said, can you come in and streamline everything for us? And I said, yeah, it'll take some time, but we'll do it. So I worked with him and the ClickFunnels team for 2.5 years.
Wow.
Helped them brand. 6 months after I got done, they hit $100 million.
Dude, they're branding. For those that don't know, and I want to have you just share this really quick, like Russell Brunson, ClickFunnels, I mean, they're growing to a $200 million company, no outside funding raised. I tell this story because we're in the middle of building a tech startup right now, and we are raising a round of funding, and we're almost finished. And I tell the Russell Brunson story of how he was able to build ClickFunnels with no outside funding using the free plus shipping model. But for those listening that don't understand what a funnel is, what ClickFunnels, could you just share a little bit of, because dude, if you were instrumental in building ClickFunnels with their design, like they have the best design, and every website is like, I love their doodles. I love everything about their brand. And so I just think that's so incredible that you were a big part of that. But what is a funnel for those listening that are like, what do they keep talking about a funnel?
Yeah. So first of all, a funnel, there's 2 ways. There's funnel theory, and then there's an actual marketing and sales funnel. The funnel theory is simply a way to take somebody from not knowing who you are, what you do, and how you do it, down a very systematic path that narrows and narrows and narrows down to a very small hole at the bottom. And it qualifies your ideal customer into buying from you. So there's top of the funnel, there's middle of the funnel, and then there's bottom of the funnel experiences. As that customer gets to know, like, and trust you more and more, they get down the funnel and eventually they buy. Now, if your funnel is broken, that means there's something top, middle, or bottom that's making people leave. We need to figure out what that is and correct that. And then they come down. Now, an actual funnel is ClickFunnels. So all it is it's a series of website landing pages that are all designed in a specific way to take your customer from a lead or a visitor, a website visitor, to a paying customer. And each page funnels them down the purchasing cycle, or the chute, if you will, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
Purchasing funnel.
Yep.
So that's the theory. That's the actual funnel. So ClickFunnels is a tool that you could build these funnels out pretty quickly. And that's how Russell built a $200 million business, with creating this software.
This could be one of the best explanations I've ever heard, by the way, for funnels and funnels. That was like really good. I'm glad we're recording this interview. So to finish off, you've shared a lot of valuable wisdom. I mean, we've got mindset, branding, determining your audience avatar. Is there anything that you want to leave the audience with? Obviously, COVID is here. It's everything is going online. You see tech companies literally, they just added 700 billion onto their bottom line. Well, while your average everyday people are just losing money. And, if that's not a wake up call that you need to get online somehow and do something and start making more money for your family. I don't know what is, but any last words of wisdom for the listeners here that are just trying to figure it all out? Like, what advice would you give because you've been there?
Well, the quicker you get help, the quicker you'll succeed. That's number one. But number two, understanding what COVID did to us. Before COVID, being online was like a nice to have. Now it's a must have. If you're not online, if you're not representing the true value that your business delivers online, that covers and captures the true essence of what you do, there's a problem. And the minute and bad branding is like carbon monoxide. It's a slow, silent killer. Nobody's ever going to tell you that your logo sucks. Nobody's ever going to tell you that your website blows. Nobody ever is going to tell you any of this because they don't want to hurt your feelings.
That's right.
So you're going to continue to throw stuff against the wall. We won't say what it is to see if it works. And you will slowly bleed out until there's nothing left. And I don't want to see that. I was there almost twice with my business. We didn't get into that, but I almost lost my business twice because of that. And you know what saved me? Understanding that I didn't know everything and understanding not how to do everything, but who can help me? Who can help me? At the end of the day, guys, I want to leave you with this. And this is sort of my why behind why everything that I do, right? So like my parents struggled to have a child. My wife and I ironically struggled to have a child too. And we finally have the love of our lives. Little Dante, he's 3 years old, right? It feels like he was born 3 minutes ago. And for all you parents out there, you probably know what I mean. I thought I was ambitious. I thought I was motivated before he was born. When this little guy gets to an age where he's going to go online and Google my name to see what comes up, I want him to be proud of what he sees. Okay? And so my question to you guys is, what's your why? And why do you do what you do? See, every episode that I record, no matter what podcast I'm on or whatever podcast I'm recording, I'm leaving little tips, little clues for my son. So when I'm long gone, he's got his blueprint on how to be a great man. Oof. That's it right there. So what's your why? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why do you want to do what you do? And share that with the world, because we're all here for a reason. So just find yours.
Man, I'm getting chills, Henry. This is great stuff. Finally, last but not least, where can people find your work, follow your content, access, the things that you offer? A lot of people are listening to this that this hit home and they realize their brand, their website, their logo. I own a preschool, so I network with a lot of preschool owners. And I tell you, I've never seen an industry in my life where their websites suck so bad. It's crazy. So where can people follow what you do?
Yeah. So the home base is Unique Designz with a Z at the end, not an S, .net. But you could check me out on iTunes and Spotify, anywhere there is a podcast hosted. You could check out the Brand Doctor podcast. And Instagram seems to be my biggest, following for whatever reason, at the Brand DR.
Brand DR.
Yeah. And you could just, don't be shy, reach out, say you heard me on the show and, you have questions. I'm happy to help. So introduce yourself and I look forward to meeting you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. This is awesome. I will put all of this in the show notes. And man, it was just a pleasure having you give your all in this interview, man. Thank you.